Beloved, have you ever felt the ache of betrayal so deep it didn't even bring tears, just silence? Have you ever sat in a room full of people and still felt completely unseen, still unheard, still misunderstood? Let me tell you something I have learned not in a classroom, not from a book, but in the secret place, where the soul goes to wrestle with pain and rise with peace. There is a time to speak. Oh yes, but there is also a time to be silent, deeply silent, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom, because not everything, not everyone, deserves a reaction. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is say nothing. Just walk away, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in stillness, with peace in your spirit and purpose in your steps. You see, reaction is what they want. They want to see you fall apart. They want to see you beg, break, bleed. But hear me, you are not required to stay where your spirit is suffocating. If your presence is no longer honored, if your heart is no longer safe, it is not rebellion to leave, it is revelation. There are some relationships, some conversations, some environments that were never meant to carry the weight of your calling, and it takes great faith, greater faith than most, to quietly say no more, to leave without a storm, to exit without applause, to cut them off without a curse, without a fight, without a single word. Oh, my dear, that is not silence, that is strength. That is the strength of knowing who you are, and more importantly, whose you are. When you refuse to react, when you cut off the noise, you make room for something greater. You make room for peace. You make room for healing. You make room for God to speak on your behalf. And let me promise you something. He always does, so don't fight it, don't fear it, don't explain, don't defend, just cut it off silently and walk in peace, because the ones who left, the ones who hurt, the ones who doubted you, they were not part of your destiny. And you, my dear, you are going somewhere divine. Don't react, just release and watch heaven move. Long pause now, lift your eyes, take a breath and walk away. With grace, there is something unspeakably powerful about stillness. Not the kind that comes from exhaustion or defeat, but the stillness that rises from within when you've finally decided you won't let the chaos around you define the calm within you. It's not passive. Oh no, it's not resignation. It's resolve. A sacred kind of resolve that says, I will not give you the power to pull me out of character. Stillness is not emptiness. It is full, full of discernment, full of restraint, full of the kind of clarity that doesn't need to prove anything, because when you know who you are truly know, there's no need to argue, no desire to clap back, no urge to perform. You simply hold your peace. You see, stillness is a form of trust. Trust that not everything deserves your voice. Trust that you don't need to defend what God already decided. There's a quiet strength in staying unmoved, even when provoked. Because the moment you react, you give away your authority, but when you stay still, you keep it. You keep your dignity, you keep your balance, you keep your oil, and make no mistake, stillness is not silence alone. It's a posture. It says, you may want chaos, but I choose peace. It's the kind of posture that confuses those who expect to see you unravel. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't flinch, who doesn't argue, who doesn't fight back, but simply remains. It takes more strength to be still than to shout. It takes more power to walk away than to win the moment. Stillness is what preserves your future, while others are busy fighting over the past. And when you remain still, something divine happens. Clarity rushes in, wisdom rises up, and peace, the kind that the world cannot give, takes over, so you don't need to yell, you don't need to beg, you don't need to explain. Just be still, let them say what they will, let them believe what they want, but you You keep your power, you keep your spirit clean, and you keep walking. In stillness, not everything and not everyone deserves access to your energy. Your time, your focus, your spirit, they are sacred. And yet, how often have we poured ourselves out into places that only left us feeling empty? How often have we tried to fix, explain, chase, prove just to be met with resistance, disrespect, or silence? There comes a moment when you realize the most powerful thing you can do is pull back. Not in fear, not in pride, but in wisdom. Because when your energy is constantly being drained by things that do not grow you, you begin to shrink into versions of yourself that were never meant to last. You become tired in places where you were once joyful, anxious where you were once at peace, and confused in rooms where you were once clear. Why? Because you gave away what was meant to be guarded. You gave your presence to what should have only seen your absence. You have to deeply learn, that not every battle is yours to fight. Not every conversation is yours to continue. Not every invitation is yours to accept. There are people who will pull you into chaos simply because they cannot find peace in their own soul. And if you're not careful, you'll think their urgency requires your attention. But urgency is not the same as importance, and loud is not the same as right. There's a kind of peace that comes when you finally stop trying to manage every misunderstanding. When you stop handing out explanations to people who have already made up their minds. When you stop responding to the noise that was only sent to distract you from your assignment. You cannot be available to everything and expect to be effective in anything. Your energy is your oil. It fuels your creativity, your clarity, your calling. And once it runs out, you are no good to anyone, not even yourself. So protect it, guard it, give it sparingly with discernment. Just because it demands your reaction doesn't mean it deserves it. Just because they expect access doesn't mean they've earned it. And yes, some will call it selfish, some will say you've changed, let them talk. You are not responsible for how people interpret your boundaries. You are responsible for honoring your peace. So if it costs your energy and gives you nothing but exhaustion in return, it's too expensive. Let it go without guilt, without explanation, and without delay. There comes a point in your journey where you no longer crave the last word. You crave peace. You no longer need to be right. You need to be whole. That shift, that quiet shift inside of you, is called discernment. It's when you begin to see beyond what's loud and look into what's true. Because drama is loud, urgent, messy. It pulls at your emotions, it provokes your reactions, it thrives on your attention. But discernment is still, it waits, it watches, it listens, and then it chooses what is wise over what is loud. There are people who live off chaos. They feel empty unless they're stirring something up. They'll bait you, tempt you, invite you into arguments that have no purpose and no end. But when you walk in discernment, you see the trap before it's set. You feel the weight of the moment, and you understand not every fire needs your water. Not every attack needs your answer. Not every voice deserves your response. Discernment teaches you to pause before you speak, to breathe before you react, to ask yourself, is this worth the cost of my peace? And most times it isn't. Because drama is always hungry, it will take everything you give it and come back for more, but discernment knows how to starve what was sent to distract you. It knows how to step back without making a scene. It knows how to preserve your energy for things that actually matter. You were never called to live in reaction mode. You were never meant to chase after every offense, every insult, every lie. Discernment frees you from the need to engage. It allows you to walk away without guilt, to let them say what they will while you remain rooted in your truth. When you choose discernment over drama, you're choosing growth. You're choosing maturity. You're choosing to protect your future instead of proving your point. And that choice, it doesn't always feel good in the moment. Sometimes it feels like silence. Sometimes it feels like weakness, but don't confuse your quiet exit with defeat. It's not defeat, it's direction. You're moving forward, you're elevating, and you can't do that when you're weighed down by every petty thing begging for your attention. So let the drama pass you by. Let the noise fade without you. You've got discernment now, and that's worth more than any argument you'll ever win. Spiritual maturity in stillness is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is not indifference. It is the quiet strength of someone who has learned that not every battle deserves a reaction, and not every insult needs a reply. It is the wisdom to know that silence is not always empty. It is often full of discernment, full of fire, full of faith. There is a knowing deep in the soul that says, God saw it, God heard it, and that is enough. It's when you no longer feel the need to correct every lie, confront every betrayal, or prove your worth to people who were never meant to carry it. You no longer run to fix what was never yours to fix. You're not cold. You're covered by grace, shielded by the Spirit, protected by the wisdom that stillness often wins what shouting never will. You begin to understand that peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of control, not control over others, but control over yourself. Control over the urge to react, to rage, to retaliate. The Spirit begins to lead you into a quiet place within, where your soul learns to rest even when your heart is breaking. You stop begging to be understood. You stop needing closure from those who never valued your presence. You stop explaining what only God can reveal. It is a holy stillness, not silence born of fear, but silence born of fire that has already burned through the worst and come out refined. You've learned that sometimes saying nothing speaks everything, and sometimes the most powerful message you can give is your peace. This stillness is not a pause. It's a posture, a positioning of your spirit to receive divine instruction rather than rush to human reaction. And in that stillness you gain clarity. You hear what noise once drowned out. You recognize who is for you and who only came for your light. Spiritual maturity isn't always in the laying on of hands or the preaching of sermons. Sometimes it's in the quiet way you refuse to let offense find a home in you. It's how you smile without spite, how you walk away without wounding, how you stay soft when everything in you wants to grow hard. This is not the stillness of surrender to people. It is the stillness of surrender to God. You trust His timing, His justice, His defense. You know you could say something, but you don't need to, because when you are still, He speaks. When you are still, He moves. When you are still, He reveals. And when the Spirit matures you, you stop reacting and start rising.